All right, coming to you live from Austin, Texas. I'm here with Kenny Bastani from Pivotal. Hey, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well. So you're here at the roadshow. You're going to be talking about Spring in the afternoon. What is Spring or Spring Boot?
So Spring Boot's pretty popular today because it's being used by a lot of companies to build microservice architectures. Now what Spring Boot does is it allows you to create Java applications very quickly. You can choose from a variety of recipes, different ingredients to bootstrap your application and get it ready for production. I do have an analogy if you want to look at it,
Sure.
metaphor here.
Why not? Metaphors always are good.
From my slide deck. So Phil Webb's the co-lead of the Spring Boot project, one of the founders, and just about 3 years ago they started the Spring Boot project. And he took to Twitter one day to explain the difference between a Spring framework, classic Spring framework, and Spring Boot. So with Spring framework we have a collection of about 40 different projects that are composed together to create applications. And that's been the way it has been for years. And what Spring Boot did was it took those ingredients and it composed them together so that developers didn't really need to spend too much time in manual configuration or XML. So what we did with Spring Boot is we kind of allowed you to take these ingredients. For instance, here I have an example of Spring Framework. The flower might represent Spring MVC, or the eggs might represent Spring Security, so you have these different ingredients. And with Spring Boot, you can just choose those ingredients, you can get them put together, and you get your finished baked cake ready for production. So that's the basic idea. And how we do this is we use something called Spring Initializer. And Spring Initializer is just this website that you have. It's an open source project. You can host it yourself, but we have a hosted instance at start.spring.io. And you can use this to generate your applications or microservices, if you will. And I can actually show you a quick demo real quick how to do this.
Cool. Let's see it.
All right, so at an angle. So here is the Spring Initializer page at start.spring.io. So here I can choose to generate a Maven or Gradle project. That's just for configuration. I can choose the Spring Boot version. I'll choose 1.3.5. And I'll just name this the user service here. That's configuration. Now I can choose my different dependencies here, which are going to be automatically configured depending on the requirements of my application. So if I want to build a web service, I can choose web. And I can pull in Apache Tomcat, and that's going to be embedded in the artifact that I create when I compile my application. So I'm going to choose web, and that's going to make this a web service. I also can choose to put in an ORM or data layer. I can use Spring Data JPA, and I can write on top of a relational database. I can also choose a database itself. This H2 database is an in-memory relational database. I'm just going to choose this for testing. And I can also choose Actuator, which is going to give me a health endpoint, other operational insights as a REST API, so I'll go ahead and choose that. And then the last one I'll choose is REST repositories. That automatically turns this microservice application into a REST API that I can interact with resources that are being stored in the database. So I'll choose REST repositories. Then I'll generate the project. I download a compressed folder. And I can just go to the command line real quick after I extract and cd user service. Now in this directory we have a fully created project with all of the files that we need to run our Java project, including our configuration file, the POM XML. And I can go ahead and start this application up using this command, Maven Spring Boot Run. That's going to compile the application and start it up and start my REST API.
Cool.
So it's started up on port 8080, so if I go to the browser and go to port 8080, we can see that it's returning back a hypermedia JSON response, and now I can go to the application and just configure it out. So this entire application is ready for production. All I have to do is go and put in the things that I want as a part of my application. And if I go to /actuator, I get another hypermedia response. This gives me a collection of links I can use to introspect my application. So we don't need to configure anything at all. This is all provided because we specified the recipe that we wanted. So I can go to /health here, which is one of the endpoints. I can see the status of my application, as well as look at the metrics at /metrics. And that's kind of the basic gist. So the whole entire thing with Spring is just gets up and started as fast as possible, specify the ingredients you want for your application, and that's it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Kenny Bastani, thank you so much.
Thank you.